I'm from Galway originally, and although I'm based in Dublin now, working for Geological Survey Ireland. The RV Galtee, that stands for Research Vessel Galtee, it belongs to the Geological Survey Ireland. It's very much purpose designed. It's an 11-metre red bay rib and can be used for all sorts of different purposes, but we've repurposed it for seabed mapping from shallow to deep water. So particularly working along that inner shelf edge around Ireland, because she has a very shallow draft, so can access very, very shallow waters along cliffs and beaches and use her what's called a multi-beam sonar to make very accurate seabed maps. But because she's quite a high-speed vessel, the equipment can then be hoisted up out of the water and she can transit quite far offshore if we need to do deeper water work. So it's actually just a very versatile small survey craft. The Irish coast is quite complicated. For instance, at the moment, the Galtee is mapping in around Inishbofin and Inishturk in the west of Ireland. And it might need to map in a couple of different areas rather than one big block offshore. Surveying can sometimes be like mowing a huge big lawn. You know, you're going over and back in a grid to map a big particular acreage offshore. Or sometimes you're trying to map specific areas of interest along the coast. So maybe the Galtee could spend a few hours mapping a stretch of cliffs along the coast of Galway, and then that afternoon she needs to head off and map another section of cliffs that might be 20 miles to the north. So you need your high-speed transit between the two sites to be actually able to get there in time and get it done the same day. And that's why you need to be able to lift the echo sounder out of the water, because if you have equipment dragging in the water while traveling at that speed, you can cause a lot of damage. These kind of small survey vessels are very, very enjoyable to work on. As an offshore surveyor or marine geologist, you can work on any number of vessels. You could be on huge ocean-going ships that are out at sea for weeks at a time. Very comfortable to work on. They can be like floating hotels. You possibly won't see land for weeks, and that can be interesting in its own right because you're investigating the deep ocean and all the mysteries that are there. But a vessel like the Galtee, you tend to be hugging the coast, and that interface between land and sea can be one of the most dynamic parts of the ocean. It can be a very interesting place to work. You're also around other people all the time. You're interacting with other users of the water, other fishing vessels, Coast Guard, the lifeboats. We always maintain contact with all these groups, and that can make the work very rewarding. And then a vessel like the Galtee needs to be back in port each evening. You know, you're interacting with port authorities, finding places that are safe to tie the vessel up, and sharing information with local fishermen about where there might be uncharted rocks or hazardous areas of seabed that need to be mapped in more detail, that sort of thing. The typical mission for the Galtee is essentially open-ended. We're just mapping as much of the Irish shelf each year as we can. Normally you'd have a crew of two on board the Galtee. You'd have the skipper who's piloting the vessel and the surveyor who'll be sitting next to them monitoring the live data feeds coming in from the equipment, because there's a lot of conditions and environmental factors that can interfere with that data. So it's not a case that you can just switch it on and off you go. You have to be monitoring it all the time and tweaking your settings so that the data coming in are clean. And usually the Galtee would be casting off at 8 a.m. on a normal survey day, transiting to their location, whether it's 20 miles offshore or it could be just a few minutes up the coast from the harbour. It can really vary. And then back ashore by 7 p.m. There's various bits of data analysis and administration that has to take place in the evening. So it's usually a 12-hour shift on a vessel like this.